Hello there, my name is Richard McMullen, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to answer situational interview questions. Now, during a conventional job interview, the questions themselves will normally be split up into two different types of questions. The first type of question is what is known as motivational questions, and the second type, which are usually a lot harder to answer, are called situational interview questions. Now, motivational questions are generally questions such as, welcome to the interview, tell us a little bit about yourself, why have you applied for this position, what do you know about the organisation that you're applying to join, and also, why should we give you the specific job over any other candidate? So I would say that those types of motivational questions are a lot easier to answer than situational ones. Now, situational interview questions are derived from usually the person specification and or the job description for the role that you are applying for. Now, when an employer creates a job description, he or she will list the qualities and attributes that are required for the role. So when you go along to that interview, they're generally going to assess you against those qualities and attributes using situational interview questions. So let's assume that you're applying for the role of, say, a customer services assistant. So if we take a second to think about the types of qualities that are required for that role, we could see that you would need to be good with customers, you need to be a good communicator, and you would also need to have the ability to resolve customers' complaints as and when they come up. So a situational interview question in relation to customer service roles might be, can you give an example of when you have resolved a customer's complaint effectively? Now, when you're responding to situational interview questions, what I recommend you do is prepare for them using the following format, and it's called the STAR format. So if I just write down on the board STAR, and this will allow me to explain in an organised manner how you should get ready to respond to the question. So when you are going to respond to that question in relation to, can you give a situation of when you've resolved a customer's complaint effectively, you would start off and explain the situation that you were involved in. And by doing this, this will make sure that your response is formatted in a logical sequence. So if I was responding to that question, I could start off and say to the interviewer, okay, yes, the situation that I was in was I was working as a customer service representative for a local shop when a customer came into the store to make a complaint in relation to some goods that he had received which were faulty. So that's the situation that you're in. You then go on and explain T for task. You tell the interviewer what the task was that you had to resolve. So if you write down there, T for task. So I would then go on and say to the interviewer, it was my task or my job to listen carefully to the customer and try and resolve the complaint in a manner which is satisfactory to him and to the organisation. So that's your task, okay? So you start off, explain the situation that you were involved in, and then move on to the task. Now the next part is called action. So you explain to the interview panel the action that you took and the action that other people took whilst resolving this issue. And I would state that action will be the main bulk of your response to the interview question. So in relation to action, I would say, I started off by listening to the customer's complaint and demonstrated effective listening skills by nodding my head and showing appreciation and empathy for his situation. Once I'd listened to what he had to say, I then took the time to come up with a plan to resolve the situation for him. So you tell the interview panel then exactly what your actions were, and that might be in relation to providing the replacement goods, coming up with some kind of compensation of sort to make sure that the customer is happy with the situation. And you would also apologise to the customer if the organisation had carried out any wrongdoing. And finally, you would check with the customer that he or she were happy with the resolution that you came up with. So once you've explained the action that you took in that situation, you would then go on and explain the result. And it's important to make sure that the result is positive following your actions. So I would finish off by saying, following my actions, the customer was really happy with the service that he had received, and I feel sure that we've managed to keep a valued customer and he would come back to the store again. So you can see that if you follow the STAR technique, situation, task, action, result, and creating your responses to these kind of interview questions, then not only will your responses be formatted in a logical manner, but you will also score higher marks for situational interview questions. A lot of people fall down during situational interview questions by telling the interview panel what they would do in that kind of situation. That's no good. What you have to do is tell them what you have done in a specific situation you've been in relation to the question. If you follow that advice, then you will score very highly when responding to situational interview questions.